Thank you for staying. Time now for us to get into the news review. We are joined by Selom Dramani Dramado. He is Convener Justice for Ghana. Selom, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good to have you.
Good to have you.
Right.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I think it's only fitting that we wish the best to each other.
Exactly. And then to your...
Since it's the first time we're meeting.
This is the first time. This is the first time meeting you in person for so many years of having our friendship on virtual. Today we are establishing on an actual level now, no longer virtual.
Right. Right before we get into the papers, though, I'd like to pick your thoughts on some trending matters. The first being the video shot by Meek and the furore around it. I've seen two different schools of thought. Some who say this is much ado about nothing. Basically, yes, some access was given to the person, but it was in a bid to get more people coming to Ghana to know that we're hospitable, we are receptive, and we're willing to boost tourism. The other school of thought is that this was a total meltdown in terms of security, our security apparatus at, I nearly said the White House, at the Jubilee House, our seat of government, and that this was simply a faux pas, something that never should have happened. What's your reaction? What's your take on that matter?
So I think to even describe it as a faux pas is an understatement. This is no. It's not a faux pas. A faux pas would just mean that reducing it to something like a peccadillo, like a minor mistake on the part of somebody. This is not a faux pas on the part of those who allowed the gentleman to use our presidency for that video shooting. It is not. Look, Justice for Ghana has been dragged to court for merely, intending to demonstrate or picket at the Revolution Square, okay, which is just directly opposite the Jubilee House. The police constantly told us that they have classified the Revolution Square as a security zone. All right?
It is a security zone.
Okay.
At least from what we know.
I reluctantly accept that place is a security zone. Even if it's a security zone at all, I suspect because of its proximity to the presidency.
Right.
So a group of Ghanaians, just about 20 of us wanted to picket there to give the president a ringside view of the realities on the ground. Because to all intents and purposes, it is clear that the president has been taking leave of us from time to time. Meaning he's not here with us on the planet Earth. He's moved now to inhabit planet Mars. Because when you look at some...
I don't think there's any record of the president traveling to Mars. And it would take quite a bit of time to actually get to Mars.
And because I'm saying this thing, particularly your background as somebody who is well-versed in metaphor, when I say...
I know, but for the sake of those who may not catch the literary tools you are using,
yes,
we might as well have you break it down because you are using them.
Thank you. So the president isn't here with us. That is why...
Suggesting literally that the president is out of touch?
Completely out of touch. Completely out of touch with the realities on the ground. So you can... And those things reflect. What I'm saying today, it reflects in the decisions that the president continues to make. That the president is completely out of touch with the realities on the ground. The president has decided to dwell now on an ivory tower, which is why he's far removed, he's detached from the harsh realities on the ground.
Okay, let's quickly go back to...
So
I think we
have kind of digressed a bit into that.
You spoke about the Revolutionary Square. You spoke about you together with a few of your members, about 20 of you, not being allowed...
Members of Justice for Ghana.
Yes. Not being allowed to picket. Yet, what is the problem then if Meek does what he did and even uses it for a video? A video,
correct. You see, it comes with all sort of security ramifications for this country. And it's, for want of a better word, that is outright desecration of, the highest office of the land.
You're using the same words Okudzeto Ablakwa used.
He used it.
Right.
But that is what it is. It's a desecration. You understand? Because that is the embodiment of whatever Ghana aspires to be and whatever Ghana stands for. That is what it is. So to allow a musician to use that place for a video shoot is just like opening us up for some attack. You know, especially given the police constant refrain. When you want to demonstrate, they tell you that the sub-region is full of, terrorists now. So demonstrating around the presidency would be kind of exposing the presidency to some attack. So when you look at that and this, but at the heart of this thing, there's something I have realized. At the core of it, it's avarice and provincialism.
Avarice?
Yes, and provincialism.
Please explain.
Thank you. You see, those in power today, they have an insatiable appetite for making money, unbridled interest in making money, which is why some of these things are being allowed in our country.
Are you suggesting, I wouldn't say sovereignty, but our dignity was sold for money? And what would back this assertion? You would need some evidence to be able to make such assertion.
It is observably clear. Even if what I'm alleging here, I'm
glad you're using the word.
Yes, because that is why I will ask you to do some independent verification of my claim to see whether something has been traded. You understand? Whether there has been some horse trading. Okay, come and do the video shoot here. This is what we are going to take from you. I'm saying to you that those in power today have an unbridled, appetite or desire to make money. Where the avarice actually
you're
comes
making from the standpoint of an allegation. But while we could also delve further into it, do you have any evidence to back your claim?
I don't have any substantiation for what I'm saying, but as somebody who has been around a bit and has have studiously and rigorously studied this government, I can say with heart on hand that something definitely, monetary, has informed that thing. And it's not only the avarice, the provincialism, that typical, this is somebody from America, let's give you access so we can also, you understand, that's why I label it as provincialism. Like Kofeto, like a typical Kokuasie kind of thing.
Rustic.
You understand? Yeah, rustic, that's it. Rustic. Okay, so he's from America, let's give him access. So we are also hobnob with him. You understand? So we can show it to our children one day that this gentleman came to Ghana and I was moving with him when I was working at the presidency. That kind of thing. And our country cannot be reduced to that level of provincialism. It cannot. We cannot accept that. This one, it's totally repugnant. And we must call out those who allowed the gentleman to use that place for his video shoot.
So you're basically surmising, conjecturing, guessing in a way that on the back of the access that was given to Meek Mill, the American rapper, that there must have been something, whether either way for personal gain of some people, whether monetarily or just so people would be seen to be hanging out with this character. But do you think, maybe it's an extension of it, but let's be honest as a people, when people of foreign extraction come to this country and all the bit about Obroni, and I find that repugnant, but we do it. We do it in all corners of our national, whether it is business.
Yeah.
I have seen people who work for our government see foreigners, some of them may be less qualified than they are, and act all, hero worship and all of that. So is it anything new? Is it something condemnable, especially when I don't do it, and maybe because of the background I had, but practically every Ghanaian does it. I don't do it from the highest echelons of leadership to the last person. We worship in a way, and then we'll turn around and say it is hospitality, but sometimes it is just bootlicking.
That's it.
So should we be condemning our leaders when they are merely reflecting in a way what we do?
Of course, because you see, when we queue, or even before we queue to vote, we have individuals who are candidates who come around canvassing votes or canvassing for support to win our hearts and minds. So it's an opportunity for us as the electorate to choose the best and brightest. You understand? Those who would think that they have distinguished themselves among us to be our leaders. You understand? So when, for instance, a typical Koko Asie person elected somebody like Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to be the president of this country, that person had his mind that Nana Akufo-Addo has gained some degree of exposure, and therefore will not stoop that low in situations like this, especially his handlers. You understand? That is why I said that whatever happened at the Jubilee House, which led to this gentleman using the place for his video shoot, was actually actuated by avarice and provincialism. I maintain that, and I maintain it strongly, with hand on heart.
Well,
yes.
I guess it is what it is, and the reactions have come.
And head must roll. You see, we shouldn't just leave it at this. You see, that is one problem I have with Ghanaians. Elsewhere, there would have been some protests at the frontage of Jubilee House.
I mean, come to think of it, I cannot imagine this happening. Definitely not at the White House. Yeah. Definitely not at which I do not know. It was said that the pulpit that was used by Meek Mill wasn't the official one used by the president, by the way. But I do not know. You
believe that?
Not in
you believe that
Nigeria, yeah. And we tend to put ourselves head and shoulder above Nigeria and make it appear in terms of democratic practice. Somehow we are far better. But not in any of the democracies I know or places I've been to would I think that such a thing would happen, unless there were some direct linkages, something clearly organized by the state for a certain purpose.
Exactly.
But in this case, that wasn't it. So this comes out appearing to be almost a bit of a leak.
Yes.
But like I said, it has happened. So for you, if some heads roll, that would at least show some seriousness in this. That should be your final point.
Yes, and you know, before those heads on their own will not roll. It is incumbent on you and I to mount pressure on those heads to roll. You understand? Because they have desecrated and degraded the highest office of the land, which is repugnant and highly reprehensible. Heads must rule.
I also noticed that Stonebwoy got some flack as well. I hear when Meek Mill posted, and I saw the post, he posted 2 fire emojis. And you know what that usually means. And people, after taking on the presidency, took him on, basically because they felt he had been lending some, how would I put it? Almost saying, you know, bravo, and way to go, and all of that. And people took him on. I didn't see him react, and you cannot determine for him what the fire emojis mean. But usually, in the context, when you use something like that, it means you are sort of, in a way, Charlie, like more fire.
More fire.
You know, kind of. And people took him on. I don't know whether I've seen Stonebwoy, if I'm not mistaken. Shatawale has been to the presidency. Yeah. I've seen Stonebwoy do same. They just didn't get the same access that Meek Mill got. Just to wrap on that subject, so 2 comments I want to take. Fatai Rashid says in the live stream, it's okay, aren't you tired of talking about Meek Mill? Move on to more important stories. Fatai, you may be missing the point, but this is a crucial matter of national security that you may be overlooking, but we could pardon your thinking that it's just something to gloss over. I'll reserve my comments, but at least I've reflected yours in all fairness.
Sure.
Philip Abuchi says, good morning. It is very heartbreaking the president has allowed foreigners to organize a show at the... Okay, so that wasn't the comment I wanted to take. This one is from Solomon Rene, who says, sad. Most citizens of Ghana are afraid to speak out owing to the fear of retaliation. I wrote a letter to the government of Ghana. No one addressed my concerns about the poor service of water in Koforidua. Some days going with clean water with this pandemic going on. Response, please. Okay, so I had to take that because this is obviously someone who has a situation in his community, Solomon Rene. I don't know which entity you'd addressed your letter to, but maybe you might want to follow up since it's early days in the year. Salom, let's get into the papers now, just a few of them, and pursue the conversation from there. Okay. The Daily Graphic this morning says, consolidating democratic gains, reject violent politicians. The NCCE says so. Pictured there, Kathleen Addy, chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education. Kathleen, if you happen to be watching us this morning, a very good morning to you and Happy New Year. Long time no see. Now, the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Kathleen Addy, has called on Ghanaians to reject politicians who resort to the use of violence and disruptive tendencies to gain political power as the country heads to the 2024 general election. Ms. Addy said perpetrators of political violence should no longer be allowed any space to operate because, apart from posing serious security threats to the country, their activities denied the citizenry of the right leaders who could help consolidate the country's democracy. She made the call at a media engagement organized by the NCC in Accra last Saturday to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Fourth Republic and the National Constitution Day. So what do you make of this, this thought being espoused by Kathleen Addy, Ms. Kathleen Addy, and what would you say have been the boons of our 1992 Constitution, 30 years on?
The boons of our 1992 Constitution. Okay, so that is the peace we have had since the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution. That's the major boon. That's the major boon. And then the peaceful transitions of one administration to the other. That's another boon.
But the Constitution itself, the 1992 Constitution by itself, hasn't guaranteed us peace. It's yes, you would say the institutions it's set up, but it is, I guess it is the sheer will of the people and trying to stick to certain tenets, maybe not necessarily the Constitution. No Constitution fosters violence.
No Constitution fosters violence, but there are constitutions that can, foster violence. Because you remember during the apartheid, there was a constitution.
Right.
No, there was a constitution.
The
apartheid system was predicated on a constitution. Okay, but that constitution was not in sync with the majority of the people, especially the blacks. You understand? So there was a constant strive on the part of the blacks to change the system because of the nature of the constitution in place at the time, which was fueling, or which was actually the bulwark of the apartheid system. So if you have a constitution in Ghana today that does not, encourage, treating some segment of society as inferior or as second-class citizen, bro, that constitution can be the boon of the kind of things we enjoy today. Yes. I thought we would be mentioning the beans and the boons and the beans. So we are now from the boon. I'm actually interested.
What then for you are the beans? What are the downsides of our Constitution?
The bean is actually, and it's reflected very much in this administration, where you realize that the democracy in itself, I'm almost going to sound contradictory, but I will try not to sound contradictory. The democracy in itself, as this government or this administration has been in power now, shows that we've got certain things to do, okay? So you may have a democracy that will allow an autocrat to come to power, and that autocrat may, because of his or her inclinations or penchant, will want to use some weaknesses in the Constitution to establish the autocracy. And that is exactly what we are witnessing now. That's what we are witnessing now. This is usually when those...
Are you then suggesting we have an autocratic democracy at play?
That will be contradiction in terms.
It will be, but it wouldn't be mutually exclusive because
I don't suggest so.
It is possible, from what you're suggesting, it would mean that our democracy, in a way, fosters authoritarianism, which would then mean that the two can be seen to be married to a certain extent, even as we have our democratic practice.
Exactly.
Yesterday, I had a discussion with some guests, and I mentioned that our brand of democracy, because there is democracy, the overarching idea of governance of the people, by the people, and for the people, in its purest form. And then there are the various applications by different institutions across the world.
Exactly.
What you would find in India is different from what you would find in Rwanda.
Sure.
What you would find in Ghana is slightly different. There are shades of difference.
And nuances.
So what then are you trying to say? I, for example, have always contended that our Constitution gives the executive far too many powers.
Sure.
So on that score, I could say that, well, we seem to foster some level of one-person leadership overweening power. I don't want to use certain terms because I am fully aware as a student of political science of what they could imply. Yeah. That is why I'm probing further into what you're saying. Do you get my drift now?
But I think the overweening is appropriate. The overweening is appropriate. Yes. When you, for instance, look at the gentleman who occupies the highest office of the land today, you mean
the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo?
So the president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, you look at him closely, you realize that he and democracy are they are at polar ends. Yes, they are at polar ends. That is why we need to do something drastic, something about the Constitution. So individuals like this who may emerge in future to that office may be somehow trammeled, fettered. You understand? Because with this one, it's like the president has untrammeled access to power, or he wields an untrammeled clout and influence.
I get what you're saying. Maybe we'll leave this conversation for a broader conversation later on, but I always say that maybe one of the ways to go is to revisit the 2010 Constitutional Review Commission and their suggestions on some of these matters. They made some brilliant suggestions, but suggestions all the same that we have not utilized. That document is gathering dust wherever it is. Let's take a look at a few more stories, and then you'll come in with the papers you have. SHS is ready for 2023 academic year. That's according to the CHAS president. Recently, there was talk about the commencement dates, and many second cycle schools have expressed their readiness to reopen for the commencement of the 2023 academic year. In separate interviews with the Daily Graphic, the management of some second cycle schools expressed their readiness to reopen for the commencement of the academic year. According to the management of some of the schools, they have put in place the necessary arrangements for second and third year continuing students to return to school for the resumption of academic activity. There's also, feeding into our discourse on the Constitution, Step Up Education on Constitution Day, Citizens Call. And some Ghanaians have called on government and the National Commission on Civic Education to educate and sensitize the citizenry, especially the young ones, to the significance of Constitution Day. And maybe finally, this one, legislate on maximum tax threshold. Story on pages 16 and 17 of the paper. So legislation must be enacted to stop governments from increasing taxes over a certain threshold. The senior legal practitioner, David Ofosu-Dorte, has advocated. He said the current laws that allowed governments to produce and increase taxes as and when they pleased were detrimental to economic growth as taxpayers and businesses were being stifled with burdensome taxes. Any reactions to this?
Yeah, it's a call in the right direction. Like we said, for instance, VAT, for instance, there should be some threshold for VAT, that VAT can only be increased to, say, the current 2.5%, okay? So that a government that always wants to burden citizens through tax, that government can be fettered somehow by those by the threshold or the cap. You understand? So this call, it's in the right direction. I agree.
But just as with the justices of the Supreme Court, where some people will explain away about the necessity, especially in our system, our multi-pronged approach and how we need our justices doing different things. Do you feel that that would also not fetter in the other direction? It can fetter both ways. So our needs, our economic needs are growing. Our tax bracket remains small. We've not fully resolved that issue. Don't you think that could also impede the handling of the business of the state, the affairs of governance on an economic level if we went down that road?
I don't see it that way, that by merely capping or putting a threshold on a tax handle.
Cap is a fetter. It's a ceiling beyond which you
Exactly,
cannot go.
I agree. It's a fetter. But how would that even make government increase its revenue? Merely increasing tax, it's only burdening the people. By expanding the tax net, it's what government should focus on.
The point I made was we had tried. We have broadened it briefly, but not to the levels that we should.
So we should broaden it further. Exactly. Exactly. But not by increasing it. So when you are increasing it, you are only burdening some segment of the people. You understand? Which may even percolate down because those people have dependents. You understand? So it will percolate down to those down there.
Point made. Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper.
The Ghanaian Times newspaper, the front page, the headline here is, "Let's work to protect our democracy," says the President of the Republic. And then Ghanaians have a responsibility to uphold the 1992 Constitution, NCC boss. I think that is what you have read a while ago. Fix the country demonstrates in Tamale for new constitution. And court restrain UG from, this is a story that is so dear to me. Court restrains UG from implementing new residential policy. What's your take on that?
I would rather get your take on that.
No, I want to have your take on that, please. You are a vandal.
How did you know I was an old vandal?
You are a vandal. Please, what's your take on this?
So
the draconian policy by the management of the University of Ghana. What's your take on it?
I would look at both ends of the situation. So there is what happened, which was not in good taste. It was in very poor taste. But then there are also the ramifications. I find it interesting. Draconian, you call it.
Yes.
And there are issues I have taken with that decision because the impact of it on those leaders. Yeah. And even, as you would recall, some of, not just the student leaders, the administrative leaders of the hall, if you recall, were also sanctioned in a way.
Yeah, I remember.
I know someone who hasn't been reinstated. But you see, I take it from both angles. While I feel it may be a bit of a stretch, I also feel that those actions must be curbed moving forward. The university administration has its own way of dealing with that situation. It may not necessarily reflect how I would have wanted it to be dealt with, but that is the route they have taken.
How would you have wanted it to be dealt with?
I would address it maybe differently.
Maybe just putting you on the spot.
No, because, it's okay.
But
what do you make of it?
You know, I have issues with the University of Ghana management. The very day I stepped I gained admission to that school, I've realized that the school is actually reflects the saying that an object in possession seldom retains the same charm it had in pursuit.
Okay.
You catch that? So, leg on. As soon as you get there, you realize that this university that is touted as the most prestigious in Ghana, it's not living up to that billing, the University of Ghana. And it has to do with the management. I call them jobs worth. Jobs worth. Like, this is what it is. And sometimes it's, when you look at even what they are insisting should be done, it's irrational.
So you're saying that the system is
something needs to be done
fixated on a certain way of doing things, and it has not moved from that way.
Yes, you understand that an academic institution should be the one that is so rules are a bit relaxed, because because that is an institution responsible for production and distribution of knowledge. You understand? So nothing there should be cast in stone. But when you go there, particularly you go to the academic affairs, maybe you have a problem. Look, there was one time I actually had to, no, I didn't have opportunity to write my exams because there was some minor problem with my registration. So I had to take that exam next semester as a supplementary paper. When even the lecturer of that course insisted that this is my student, he's even my course rep, allow him to write the exams, these guys wouldn't budge.
Do you feel it wasn't the university's regulations that were being implemented in total, or was it that they were merely being, I don't want to use the word that is coming, but implementing the regulations without giving a human face to it? Either way, people would say that regulations are regulations.
Regulations are regulations, but regulations are meant for human beings.
Right. That's why I speak of a human face.
Exactly. Exactly. So that university, lot more things need to be done there, especially at the management level. You know, and you have carried this thing to the Commonwealth Hall. How? No. So it means you are causing problem yourself for the university.
Well, some of the old vandals also masked up. I'm sure you heard of the demonstration.
Yeah.
And we'll see how things go, because there was another reaction basically saying that the university administration is in charge. They do what is best for the university community. But is there any other story you want to, our time is actually up. Let's see whether there's something else you'd like to get into.
Okay, there's one here. That's the Daily Guide. It's not one that I'm interested in though, but let me, for the sake of viewers, so viewers will know what's on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. The banner headline says, MPP decides January 31st for elections. I wish them well. Businessman, Republic of Sikampe Dede, in respect. I think this is somebody's opinion. Nana, okay, so Nana here I think is the, okay. Nana reiterates commitment to digitalization.
That's in the middle spread of the
middle spread of the newspaper. President Akufo-Addo says his administration is leaving nothing to chance in the digitalization drive. He believes it is the best option for the government and the economy to survive in the 21st century. That, he said, was part of the digitalization agenda, remained some of the most important objectives of his government, because it had become the new language, new science, and new knowledge for the progress and development of the human race.
Right.
Okay, so now who is the messenger here? The message is, it's a welcome one, but the message does not sit well with the messenger. It sits ill with the very person who is saying this. Because when the person who is saying this thing, this message does not square up with that person. He is not a true spaceman of this very message.
Right.
You understand? Because his decisions actually reverse. It's reversing this very digitalization agenda. So he needs to set up, if he wants to be part of the 21st century leadership. Because the 21st century leadership is predicated on this thing, digitization and digitalization. And I think that the president has not, per his decisions, been in tune, very much in tune. His decisions are not very much in tune with this very agenda. So his decisions are counterproductive to the agenda he has set for this country of digitalizing it.
Let's wrap with some headlines from these papers. The New Crusading Guide, Improved Condition of Prisoners, Doma East MP to Stakeholders, Ghana to host Africa Prosperity Dialogues, and Ghana Gas Workers Unhappy with Gensa Deal. That's the New Crusading Guide. Then Graphic Business, Global recession to hit Ghana badly if. I'll just take a swipe at that. But on the back page, Salom, we don't have enough time for a reaction. Economic upsides of CR7's foray to the dunes, and he's going to be earning some $210 million a year, and they are looking at the benefits for Al Nasser as well. But just the story on page 3. Global recession to hit Ghana badly if. And analysts and global economic watchers have warned of an imminent global recession that is feared would further deepen the economic challenges facing the already embattled Ghanaian economy. According to them, with the current debt crisis, soaring inflationary pressures, and the unpredictability of the Ghana currency, any further slide in the global economic growth figures would have dire consequences on the Ghanaian economy. And those are the stories in there. Salom, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
And thank you for graciously inviting me to be on your...
Justice for Ghana.
Justice for Ghana, the convener for Justice for Ghana. Let me use this opportunity to say a very good morning to all gallant members of Justice for Ghana and to the good people of Central Tongue constituency, North Tongue constituency, and Central Tongue constituency, particularly at Idome, Mafikumase, and Bakba. And
that is Salom Dramani Dramado, who spoke to us this morning. Convener, right?
Yeah,
convener
for Justice for Ghana.
Ghana.